I'm kind of speechless, I can't lie. Yeah, a lot has happened over the last 2 days and a lot has got to be talked about. Yeah. Oh, God, guys, where do I even start? Nominations? Caroline? George? What is going on in Big Brother at the moment? Honestly, I am absolutely blown away. I can't believe it. But we are here to talk about all things Big Brother. And I'm super excited to get into the nitty gritty with you guys. So, thank you guys for watching. Let's just get straight into it. I think we'll start with nominations. Let's start with probably what's going to be the most positive note of the episode, which is strange, because usually nominations are the negative note of the episode, but apparently not today. Apparently not today. Somehow we've got three things worse to talk about. And, oh god, okay. Anyway, nomination started with Faishola, and she said George and Tate were her two picks. I'm going to be reading off my paper, so just bear in mind my eye line might be dropping. Great spirit for George, but he lacks any maturity in terms of the conversations that he has and the kind of way he articulates himself. And also he can be quite combative, which I completely agree. I do feel like his opinions lack any kind of research and knowledge. They're kind of just reiterated points that he's heard online. That's what I mean by I feel like he's a plant, because he's just reiterating the same things that I read on a daily basis in uneducated groups of people. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like George should have a little bit more substance than that. Tate, he laughs, and his laugh is apparently a lot, but also he doesn't clean up at all. So fair enough, that is fair voting. George decided to vote for Elsa and Sam. Elsa because she doesn't really get involved in any conversation. She doesn't really have any talk that is above a certain intellect level, I think was the framing he was using. And with Sam, he used the whole truth or dare incident as a reason to nominate Sam. And I was like, didn't you get a warning for that? Didn't you get told off for that? And now you're saying that you are having to walk on eggshells because of that when you were in the wrong in that situation. So, like, why are you nominating him based on that? I think he just wanted to get Sam back for the fact that he got a warning from Big Brother because of it. But we're going to talk more about warnings and George a little bit later. So, yeah, we'll get into that. But it seemed like a pretty weak reason, and I mean, it is what it is at the end of the day. Tate decided to vote for OG Cameron as well as Jenny. Cameron because he gives Richard a lot of flack, and he's also been quite selfish with the eyes. He went into the shop and didn't buy anything for anybody, even though he had the second most amount of eyes even. So I can understand why he would nominate him for that. But with Jenny, apparently she doesn't cook or clean. So yeah, that would be a valid nomination reason. And Jenny, you gotta fix up. You can't be slacking on the cooking and the cleaning, bestie. You can't be doing that. This is a house. This is a democracy. We have to work together. In fact, it's more communism, isn't it, in the Big Brother house? Caroline was up next, and she voted for Elsa and for Nancy. Elsa because she feels like Elsa doesn't really get involved in the group. Same kind of reason as George gave for Elsa, and I completely agree. I feel like Elsa is kind of in her own little world. She doesn't really seem like she talks to many people outside of the ones that she formed an instant connection with, and that's how you can't be like that in the house. And then with Nancy, apparently Nancy doesn't cook or clean, so fair enough, a valid reason to vote. This seems to be a recurring theme as people who don't cook or clean get nominated because it's like you're not doing your fair share of work. And you know what, I can completely understand that. Marcus nominated Sam and Zila. Sam because he hasn't really gotten to know Sam. There's no sort of connection between them. They just haven't got to know each other. And with Zila, they just have different banter. It felt very much like Marcus was like, he's not really one of the boys. And that's where that was coming from in terms of like, because he's trans, we have different banter. It wasn't said explicitly like that, but that's kind of the vibe I got from it. I don't think it was as malicious as that, but yeah, it just didn't quite sit right with me. Which, I mean, Zila said that in his opening video, the fact that he's not one of the boys, and I guess Marcus is kind of just reiterating that, but it just felt a little bit off to me, I can't lie. Sam was up next, and Sam voted for George and for Marcus. I mean, for George, the reason is fairly valid. He feels uncomfortable around George. He feels like his identity was being used against him in a mocking way, which it absolutely was. And then with Marcus, now, a lot of people are giving Sam flack for his reason, but I will say he did have a very valid reason hidden amongst all of the banter. He was like, oh, Marcus is just too hot, and that's why I'm nominating him. But then he did go on to say, I just feel like I can't be my full self around them, which absolutely fair and valid. That is a fair reason to nominate somebody if they put you in a position where you don't feel like you can be yourself. I feel like Sam was just trying to shield it with humor a little bit and like sort of soften the blow a little bit, but I guess people neglected to listen to that section. Do you know what I mean? Tasia was up next, and Tasia voted for George and for Tate. George because he sees the world in very black and white terms. He doesn't really see the grey in between. He doesn't seem to have any empathy for people, which is very, very fair. I don't feel like he does have empathy. She also called him out for his uneducated views, which fair and valid. And then the reason why she voted for Tate was because she feels like his conversations are very surface level. They don't really go beyond, oh, how are you doing today? Oh, do you like this? Oh, do you like that? There's nothing deep about his conversations with her. And again, fair and valid. Zila was up next, and Zila voted for Cameron B and Marcus. Cameron B because of the whole Richard sitch with the eyes and the snitching and the it was just uncomfortable, and I can understand why people would be wary of Cameron B now. The fact that he decided that he was going to say something on those lines and then backtrack and be like, oh no, I actually meant this, a completely different thing that I meant. So yeah, I feel like he was trying to stir up trouble and exaggerate, and people took it the wrong way, and then that came back and backfired against him. But that's why you got to be careful what you say in the Big Brother house. We will talk about that later. But his second nomination was for Marcus, just because they have the least connection. It's always interesting when people nominate someone that then nominates them, because I'm always like, oh, that makes sense then. And Marcus is also potentially holding back as well parts of his personality. Is that true? I don't know. I don't know him personally, so I can't pass comment on that. But the case very well could be that he is. Nancy voted for George and for OG Cameron. George because he lacks empathy, and he's also quite condescending with his views and his opinions. And then with Cameron OG, she just gets bored easily with him. She basically said, if I was stuck in an elevator with everybody, I think I'd be able to have more fun. But if I was stuck with Cameron in an elevator, I think I'd be very bored. And again, fair and valid. Cameron B voted for George and for OG Cameron. George because he's upset that Apple Cart, he comes in, he causes like a conflict within conversations and things like that. Again, we'll talk about that later. And then also with Cameron OG, he just hasn't really helped the morale with the eyes. This is the similar reason that I think Tate gave earlier on, with the fact that he didn't actually go into that mini mart and buy anybody anything to boost morale for the people who didn't get anything. He just kind of was selfish and kept the eyes for himself. OG Cameron was up next, and he voted for Cameron B as well as Nancy. Cameron B because he felt like the crusade against Richard was out of order and not very nice. And with Nancy, he just feels like she doesn't really acknowledge that he exists. And again, I feel like it's interesting because she said that she was bored by him, and he's saying, oh, I don't feel like she really acknowledges me outside of brief one-to-one conversations. And again, that's fair. Sometimes you just don't click with people in the house, and that gives you an automatic reason to nominate someone. Nominations can be hard for some people, and if that kind of thing happens, you have to vote for them. Elsa voted for Cameron B and for Jenny. Cameron B because he's a bit much, and he also makes weird sexual comments towards her, which is something that we've not seen, I don't think, as far as I'm aware. I mean, I think I noticed one at some point, but I could not tell you when that was or when it happened or what was said, do you know what I mean? But yeah, just interesting, weird things. Yeah, that was a weird one, because the thing she was saying, I was like, we haven't seen, so what's that about? And then with Jenny, she feels like Jenny ignores her and says snarky things towards her. And again, I was sitting there and I was like, Jenny, What are you talking about? What are you actually talking about? I have no clue what you're on about because, again, we have not seen it. So this is all coming out of thin air. I'm starting to think that Elsa is maybe just seeing things that aren't there, or like hearing things that aren't being said, or interpreting things in the wrong way, because we've seen that happen with Marcus. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, I don't know. These nominations felt a bit booky to me. Jenny was up next, and Jenny voted for George because obviously he's just opinionated and very rude. And then she voted for Elsa because she felt like when she got drunk the other night, she was actually quite out of line and rude to Marcus. And she was like, she got a bit nasty with a drink in her. I can't do the accent, guys. I'm really trying. I just can't do the accent. I can just about understand her, but wow, it is what it is. Yeah, honestly, I think that voting for Elsa was fair. I would have as well. I think my nominations would have been George and Elsa, if I'm being 100% honest. But yeah, honestly, crazy. And then Richard voted for Camby and Elsa. Camby because obviously the whole snitching thing. He had to do this face to face, bear in mind. The whole snitching thing was kind of out of line. And then he voted for Elsa because he felt like he was going to be doing her a favour by putting her up for nomination, sending her home. Yeah, interesting nomination from you there, Richard. I did kind of miss the full reasoning, but I went back and watched and I think he said that. But yeah, I feel like he was trying to soften the blow. I feel like he's got other reasons for voting Elsa, but he didn't want to be so upfront and brutal about it. But yeah, an interesting one, I can't lie. I don't even know what to say about the whole Caroline situation, if I'm being 100% honest. I'm not going to repeat what she said. If you've watched the episode, you know what she said. And obviously, unforgivable, horrific, dreadful thing to say. And it just disappointed me in the moment. I really wanted her to stop talking after the first time, when she was talking about genitals. That was when I wanted her to stop talking. And then she just kept on going and kept on going and kept on going. And I was just like, oh no. Oh no. And it's so jarring because I was just starting to get back on board with Caroline. Literally, in the last couple of episodes, I've been like, do you know what? Caroline might be friends with Nigel Farage, but maybe she doesn't hold the same views as him. Maybe it's just someone that she hangs out and has a pint with. I don't want to have a cynical view of this. I don't want to sit here and say that she's a horrible person, she's nasty, she's cruel, because nobody's doing that inside the house, and they're the people who are spending 24 hours a day with her. We are seeing the highlights. We are seeing literally 45 minutes of a 24-hour cycle. So we as an audience can only make our opinions based on what we see on television. And the people in the house are not considering her to be a awful, terrible human being. She said something that was dreadful, and she's got to learn from that. Okay, that is my opinion on this. It's unfortunate. It is completely detestable. Yes, I can't in good conscience just say that's it. I have to hate her for the rest of the series based off of this one moment. Now with George, it's slightly different. With George, it's repeated actions, whereas this is one instance. So as much as I'm really trying hard to find the silver lining in all of this, it's bad. It's really bad. It is really bad. Like I said, I'm really trying to have a nuanced view of it, but it's really hard to. It's really hard to have a nuanced view. The good thing is, in my opinion, is the fact that as soon as she said it and people went, that was not okay, she went, oh, my bad. Oh, sorry, etc., etc. And it seemed like she then went into a spiral of, oh fuck, oh god, oh god. And listen, we've all been in situations where we have said horrific things. It has not gotten the reaction that we thought it was going to get. And then you're sat there and you're like, fuck, oh my god, how do I put this right? Imagine being on a national television show doing that. Do you know what I mean? Did she do this for the cameras? Would she have done this in real life? You don't know. You really don't know. And I don't feel like it's fair to cast aspersions as to whether some people are playing a game, playing up to the cameras. I personally felt like Caroline was very genuine in the fact that she did feel extremely awful for what she said. And it's one of those moments where, like, she'd had a drink. Obviously, this was said whilst intoxicated. Drunk words, sober thoughts. Yeah, cool. Whatever. But it was one of those moments where you know when you're drunk and then something happens and you immediately sober up. That's what I saw in Caroline. I feel bad for Zila. I feel bad for Nancy, although that's a whole separate issue. It's just tough. And it makes my job hard because I was sitting watching and I was going, oh no, I'm going to have to talk about this. I'm going to have to talk about this. No, this is not the kind of thing that brings me joy to talk about. Do you know what I mean? So the next day, the apology tour began. And I have to say, again, me personally, I felt like it was very genuine from Caroline. I think she felt genuinely dreadful. I think it was one of those things where her mouth just ran away with her and she just didn't think before she spoke. And I would like to give her that benefit of the doubt because aside from the whole Nigel Farage comment that she made earlier on in the series, there hasn't been any other repeated behaviour that leads me to believe that this is anything more than a horrific moment for her and for Zila and for Nancy. And the fact that Zila and Nancy have both separately had a conversation with her and both of them had conversations in which Caroline basically said, I've got no excuse. I'm so sorry. That to me shows that she is genuinely sorry. She didn't try and blame it on the alcohol. She didn't try and blame it on this. She didn't try and blame it on that. She explicitly said the words, I've got no excuse for what I did. I don't know why I did it. I'm so sorry. So me personally, I can shove that to the side. I can move it and we can move past that as long as Zila and Nancy are willing to move past it. Because they're the ones that are living with her. They're the ones that have to deal with her. We are just watching at home, okay? We can form our own opinions. Yes, sure. You can dislike her based on what she did. Yes. But me personally, we have to be able to move past these things, okay? And if the people, the aggrieved parties are able to move past it, then there's no reason why we shouldn't either. That's my professional opinion, being an amateur. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, I just think it was a horrific moment. And I think that her apology proves to me that her actions were detestable, not only by Zila and Nancy, but by herself as well. And she understands that. And listen, Zila said it best himself. As long as you're willing to learn and grow and move forward from this and not do it again, then there's no problem. Because that's how I view it. I view the exact same way. If you repeatedly do this behaviour, like George is doing, repeatedly with just being, then there is a problem. But if this is an isolated incident and this is the only time that Caroline actually does something of this and she goes out of her way to prove that she's not actually like that, then hey, maybe there is a way forward for her. But I have a feeling as soon as she gets put up for nomination, that's it. She's out the house. Well, it's no secret by now that George has been removed from the house. And they're not going to be showing why he's been removed from the house because apparently it breaches broadcasting guidelines, which is mental to me. I think the fact that he's been removed from the house is fine because if he's had multiple warnings about his language, about his behaviour, about everything, then yeah, fair and valid, remove him from the house. But not showing us what happened when you've just shown what Caroline did? I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit of a double standard, especially considering what his comments were apparently about. They were apparently anti-Semitic. Listen, me personally, I feel like comments about LGBTQ people are just as bad as comments being anti-Semitic. Do you know what I mean? Either way, you're... yeah, I don't understand why one can be shown but the other can't. Do you know what I mean? But that's besides the point. We still got some awful moments of George in this episode. Namely, the fact that he was sitting there, again, harping on about homeless people. And I was like, oh, God. God, do you want to spend a couple of days on the streets and see what they go through? Because I would not like that, thank you very much. I am very, very much sympathetic towards them, but also do not want to trade places with them. So if you haven't got the sympathy for them, go out there and get the sympathy for them. That's what winds me up about him, is that he is such a privileged person, but he thinks he's not privileged, but he is. And he's got no understanding of empathy. Do you know what I mean? And then the real killer for me, they were discussing the movie Lightyear, which, if you don't know what the movie is, it's a Buzz Lightyear prequel or something or other. I don't know. I didn't watch it because I love Toy Story. Toy Story 3 is my favourite movie of all time. But the fact that they gave Buzz Lightyear to Chris Evans instead of Tim Allen, I was like, why? Why? I don't want to listen to Chris Evans as Buzz Lightyear. That's not what I want. But anyway, that's besides the point. That was my problem with the movie. His problem with the movie is the fact that there was a peck on the cheeks or a light peck on the lips between two lesbian characters. Whoop-de-doo. Whoop-de-doo. And he's like, they're indoctrinating the children. No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. And then Zila was like, so if it was a man and a woman, if it was a mum and dad kissing, that would be fine. And George was like, well, no, I think I'd have a problem with that as well. No, you wouldn't. Shut it. Shut your mouth. Shut up. There is a kids' movie called Shrek in which it's heavily insinuated that a dragon and a donkey have had raw sex to have babies. Okay, so let's not be talking about I don't really agree with two women kissing on the lips in a kids' movie. That's not your point. Your point is that you don't like gay people, which again, I don't believe, because you were an extra in it, Heartstopper. I don't believe it. I really don't believe it. I do just believe you've come in here to spout off everything in the Daily Mail comment sections. Literally, the fact that this was a conversation proves it to me. Do you know what I mean? It just proves it. And then he said the fact that it's pornographic, and I was like, oh, you've lost me now, mate. You've absolutely lost me. A peck on the cheek is pornographic. Why are you hypersexualizing it? Well, that's them hypersexualizing it, not me. No. I don't think Pixar was putting that scene in the movie going, oh, I hope the kiddies find that very sexual. No, they were just representing a relationship that's in the world. Do you know what I mean? You're the one that's turning it into something nefarious and nasty. Oh, God, honestly. Oh, it winds me up, he does. Right, I have gone very, very over because we had a lot to talk about in this episode. But let me run you through some of my other favourite moments. Richard and his spicy curry. That was absolutely hysterical. Genuinely one of my favourite moments of the episode. Great, great entertainment. There was a moment between Caroline and George that I felt was potentially a rule-breaking conversation. They were talking about who they thought would be up for nomination or up for eviction in the coming weeks and who wouldn't be. And I was like, are they talking about nominations or are they just talking about who would be up for eviction? I don't know quite what the guidelines are and how that navigates the rule break, but who knows? Maybe it's a rule break, maybe it isn't. I doubt it though, because Big Brother doesn't seem to care that much. It seems like we've got the soft launch of Marcus and Elsa Part 2. I don't care about it, if I'm being honest. Them just touching hands at the end, I was like, oh, get lost. I can't be bothered with it. Do you know what I mean? I can't be bothered. Get off my screen. Jenny spoke about how she managed to wangle a week off of work for Liam Payne's death last year, which came as a shock to everybody, I can't lie. But she lied about her aunt dying and then tried to produce like a fake obituary for her aunt. And then it was all crazy, but she managed to get away with it when she was caught. So, you know what? Crazy work from you there, Jenny. There was a conversation about kink shaming, and honestly, I kind of agree with Tasia. I think there's some kinks that you definitely need to shame. I think there are some you don't need to shame. Absolutely not. But there are some. You know who you are. You're filthy. You're filthy with your golden showers. Craziness. Absolutely crazy. But we're not really shaming. We're just poking fun at you at the end of the day. And then finally, we had Richard getting up from his bed and telling people to be quiet in the middle of the night when they were having a cheeky little gossip sesh in the bedroom. I have to be honest, I find that very disrespectful, and I think that Richard was well within his rights to be like, shush. They should have taken that out to the living area, because I'm not being funny. Why are you talking at like a raised volume? Not even that raised, to be fair, but you're talking at a normal volume in the middle of a bedroom when people are trying to sleep. That's very, very rude, if you ask me. But that is all we've got time for today. I know it's been a long episode, so thank you for sticking with me. And I hope to see you in the next episode, whenever that may be. But until then, make sure to keep on ranting, and I'll see you guys later. Bye now. See ya.